Hey guys, welcome back for another episode of The Suited Shootist. A couple weeks back I did a red flags video on some things that might be warning signs when you're looking to find a firearms instructor, so I thought it was only fair to do a green flags video as well. I'm not going to do a long intro on this one, let's go ahead and jump into it. So, criterion number one. Probably comes as no surprise, but if the instructor has their certifications listed, and they absolutely should, the range master instructor, specifically if they have the advanced and or the master rating, is a great indication that you are with a competent instructor. Certainly not a guarantee. None of these are. But I will say that I've encountered far fewer instructors that are kind of jacked up that have a range master cert than ones that have some of the more well-known and prolific certifications from the larger entities. I'm not going to point fingers because it's really not their fault. It definitely lies on the shoulders of the instructor, but it's definitely something to consider. So the master development course, if I'm not mistaken, you've got to run through it with a semi-auto as well as a revolver. And there's also some other considerations that come into play. So not only can they shoot, but the instructorship of people that graduate from that program just tends to be at a higher level. So the Range Master Cert is definitely one to look at. This is also probably not going to be a big surprise, and it's kind of the flip side of the coin from the red flags video. You want to see specificity in their background. I've seen quite a few About Us pages or instructor bios where they're using call signs or some nom de guerre as opposed to an actual name. And, number one, that's just, I don't understand it. If you're teaching open enrollment, if you're teaching the civilian populace, that's a factor. But getting kind of to focus on the green flag, you want people that are specific about their backgrounds as well as their CV, because if nothing else, it gives you useful information as to whether or not the material they're teaching is going to be relevant to you in your context. For example, someone who has listed that they are graduates of, the FBI Firearms Instructor Program, they've been to Force Science Institute, they've taken XYZ courses either as a student or whether they're instructor programs, things like that, is a good indicator both of their area of expertise as well as how current their material is. There was one instructor that I ran across who, on his business card, he had listed the Applegate Fairbairn methodology. And he was a current firearms instructor, not a firearms historian or something like that. So I don't know the relevance of still teaching World War II methodology. So again, those are kind of the indicators, and it can be an indicator of whether they are worthwhile or not. So the third one is going to be a little bit different. Given that a whole lot of this takes place in the digital space now, a lot of these folks have an online presence, whether it's Instagram, Facebook, business pages, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And that gives us a great insight. And so the green flag here is go to these instructors' business pages and look at how they communicate with people. Because a good communication style is fairly essential when you are teaching people things. So if they have a good communication style on their public-facing pages, then very likely that is going to mirror or at least give you a sense of how they are as an instructor also, because there are very easily things that can get lost in translation, or I've found myself even guilty of this as well when I'm teaching brand new people that are completely unfamiliar with firearms. Terminology that is just so commonplace within the sphere that folks that are just on the periphery don't understand. They might be able to kind of infer from context, but again, explicit communication is really critical. So that's something to definitely look for, in my opinion. And then lastly, this kind of ties in with the specificity of the CV, but the recency of their training as well, because the truth of the matter is it's not uncommon at especially the entry levels to see folks take maybe one class outside of the instructor certification and then start teaching people stuff. Now, if you are only teaching the absolute bare minimums of safe gun handling, then potentially that could suffice. However, if you've got somebody that's teaching very technical concepts or very advanced principles, then if they've only got a couple of classes and they were 10 years ago, that's not necessarily as comforting as someone whose CV is much more up to date and they are still currently a student themselves. That is a huge one to look out for, because even folks that I know that have been teaching for decades continue to refine their material. And that dovetails into kind of the next green flag. The final one, didn't really mean for this to be a top 5 list, but here we are, is that their material changes and evolves, because the reality is that we develop better understandings of things than we had previously. At the end of the day, shooting is an athletic endeavor, and we have a deeper understanding of sort of athletic science now than we ever have, both in terms of the physiology, the neurology, etc. And so when that new information comes to light, then that can either establish new best practices, disprove certain things, etc. And so it's very critical that the material evolves. If you've got, Gunsight 250 today is not the same as Gunsight 250 10 years ago, 20 years ago, etc. So something to keep in mind there is if they've been teaching the exact same thing for a prolonged period of time, stagnation is not a good indicator, whereas currency and recency absolutely is. So what are your thoughts on this? Did I miss anything? Am I off base on anything? I want to hear all that down in the comments. Otherwise, I hope everybody has a fantastic week. Stay dangerous and stay sharp.